Hi everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. I'm Gaia, also known as Granny Gaia on TikTok, Instagram, and of course here on YouTube. In today's tutorial, I'm going to show you how to make this summer v-neck top. I explain how you can adjust it to any size. As this is a made-to-measure pattern, it involves a lot of trying it on as you go to make sure that the top fits you perfectly. I also show you how to add elastic to the top, which is optional, but I really do recommend it because not only does it help maintain its shape over time, as in it's less likely to stretch out, but it also helps give the top a little bit more shape. I'm currently doing a series called the Crochet-a-thon Summer Edition, where I make as many crochet summer pieces as I can, whilst also making tutorials for you guys. So if you want to have a cute summer wardrobe, be sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss out on my next designs. As always, I'm happy to help you out. If you have any questions, you can leave them in the comments or send me a DM on Instagram with pictures to help describe what your problem is, and I'll do my best to reply and help you out. In today's tutorial, I'll be using these two yarns. I will link in the description box where you can get this yarn. This is the Animation DK weight yarn in the color white. However, this is more of a sport weight or number 2 weight in my opinion. I'll also be using this yarn, the Visions Sport Weight in the color Mushroom Pillow. This has a really nice range of colors, which will make for a very effortless color change in the bottom part of the top. This yarn is a mix of viscose and cotton, and this is a 100% mercerized cotton yarn. I personally picked these two yarns because the fiber content in them is both perfect for crochet wearables, especially in hot weather. With that, I'm using this 3.5mm hook, some scissors, some stitch markers, a tape measure, and a needle. You will also be needing elastic thread, and together with some elastic thread, you will need a small hook. I'm using a 2mm hook. You can use any color of thread you want, but I recommend using a color of thread that matches or is the same color as the top part. But since right now I only have black, this is what I'm going to use. Okay, so let's begin by making the top part. I'm going to choose this white color, and we're going to start with a slip knot. Just like so. Then we are going to chain. I would make your chains slightly loose, just because usually the beginning chain tends to not be as stretchy as the rest of the stitches. So you want to make your chain long enough to fit your bust. You have to keep measuring this against your body. So here I have my chain, and we're going to measure, make sure that it goes all the way around the bust and that it meets comfortably. You don't want it to be too tight. So once you have made your chain and measured it against your body, we are now going to join this chain in the round. So when you do this, make sure that your chain is not twisted. So just follow the chain, make sure the chains go in the same direction all the way through. And then you're going to insert your hook into that very first chain you made. And then we're going to slip stitch. So yarn over and pull through all the loops on your hook. Now, at this point, it's really important that you try this on. Make sure that you can fit your head and shoulders through this hole here. So make sure you get it over your head and your shoulders, like so. So as you can see, mine fits just right at here. You don't want it to be too tight, you don't want it to be too loose. Make sure it fits you comfortably, and the most important thing is that you can fit it over your head and shoulders. If you cannot fit your head and shoulders through this hole, that means you need to add more chains. And if it fits too loose around your bust, then you need to take away some chains. Keep trying it on until you get the perfect fit. So for my size, my bust is 32 inches all the way around, and I did a total of 115 chains here. And in inches, I just folded it in half. It measures about 15 inches. Okay, so to continue working, we are going to be working in half double crochets. So to start our first round, we are going to chain 2, yarn over and pull through twice to make your 2 chains. And then I'm going to go into each chain and place 1 half double crochet stitch. our first chain being this one right here. So yarn over, insert your hook into that first chain, yarn over, pull up a loop with 3 loops on your hook, yarn over and pull through all the loops on your hook. So that's your first half double crochet stitch. And I like to mark my very first stitch of each round just to make things easier for me, and I recommend you do this if you're a beginner or if you struggle to identify where your last and first stitches are. Okay, so we're going to repeat that into every stitch. So yarn over, insert your hook into the next stitch, or into the next chain, sorry. Yarn over, pull up a loop with 3 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull through all those 3 loops on your hook. And there you go, you've made another half double crochet stitch. I'm going to show you one more time. Yarn over, insert your hook into the next chain, yarn over, pull up a loop with 3 loops on your hook, yarn over and pull through all those 3 loops. Okay, so continue doing this all the way around until we get to the beginning stitch here. Okay, so I'm coming up to my last stitch here, or my last chain. Okay, just made my last chain, and so now we're going to connect it to the top here. So you can remove that stitch marker and insert your hook into the first stitch we made of this round. Then we're going to slip stitch, so yarn over and pull through all the loops on your hook. So that's our slip stitch. Now we're going to chain 2, turn our work, and make 1 half double crochet in each stitch all the way around. So yarn over, insert your hook into that very first stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop with 3 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull through all those loops on your hook. Okay, so just like we've been doing in our first round, we will just do the same, but this time going into stitches instead of chains. So do this all the way around, and again, if you struggle to identify your stitches, I recommend marking the very first stitch of every round. So when you are trying it on, this part that we started off with is going to be at the under bust, okay? Under your bust. And of course, there will be some space, don't worry, because we will be adding elastic to cinch in at the under bust. The reason why there is space is because we had to make it bigger so that we could fit our head, shoulders, and bust through. Since we are starting off by making the top part, and as you go, I'm going to ask you to keep trying it on. And what I mean by that is you need to put it over your head, over your shoulders, over your bust, and put this, where we started, at the under bust. And then we will keep making rows and rows, forming the neckline and forming the straps. So I just wanted to demonstrate how exactly you should be trying it on and measuring it on your body. Okay, so I have finished making my last half double crochet in my second round. To join the round, we are going to insert our hook into that very first stitch of the round, yarn over and pull your yarn through all the loops to make a slip stitch. Okay, so we've connected our second round. Now to start our third round, chain 2, turn your work, and make 1 half double crochet in each stitch all the way around, just like you did on round 2. So essentially we are going to keep making rounds and rounds of half double crochet. So remember, when you get to the end here, you're going to slip stitch into the first stitch, chain 2, turn your work, and then go around again with half double crochets. So you are basically going to keep making rows of half double crochet until it reaches the decrease point. Now, what I mean by decrease point is basically where you want your V-neck point to start. So how low you want your V-neck to be. Now, this is where you can customize. You can either have your V-neck be here or here. It's completely up to you. So you're just going to continue making rows and then keep trying it on like I am here. Place it right at your under bust. And so for me, I want to start decreasing at about this area here and start decreasing to create that V neckline. Okay, so I'm happy with how many rows I have done, and I'm ready to start making my decreases to form the V-neck line. Just to give you some measurements, I did a total of 5 half double crochet rows, which measures about 1.3 inches. So now we need to find the midpoint of the front part, which is where we will start making our decreases. So to do that, I've just put my stitch marker here in that loose loop. This is gonna mark the back, so the midpoint of the back. So this will be the back side. So what I'm going to do is I'm just gonna fold this in half with that stitch marker or that back seam on the side here, like so. Fold it in half like this. And then I'm going to take a stitch marker and mark this stitch at the end right here. It doesn't really matter, it doesn't have to be too accurate because this is just to help us estimate where the front midpoint is. Now, when we put it like this, this is the back, the midpoint of the back, and this is the midpoint of the front. So to make sure that they have equal number of stitches on both sides, I'm going to count how many stitches I have in between this stitch marker and this stitch marker. And however many stitches I have there, I need to make sure that I have the same number of stitches on the opposite side from this stitch marker to this stitch marker. This just helps ensure that our midpoint is correct. Okay, so I've counted and I have 56 stitches in between these two stitch markers on both sides. So once you have your front midpoint marked, we can continue. So I'm going to go back to that stitch that we left off on, put my hook back in, and now I'm going to chain 2, turn my work, and we're going to make 1 half double crochet in each stitch all the way around until I make it to that midpoint that we marked with the stitch marker. So just like we've been doing, yarn over, insert your hook into that first stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop with 3 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull through all the loops on your hook. So continue making your half double crochets until you reach the stitch marker. Okay, so I am reaching my stitch marker. I'm just going to place my last stitch into that stitch with the stitch marker. So yarn over, insert your hook, and make a half double crochet, just like that. And now we are going to chain 2, turn your work, and we're going to make 1 half double crochet in each stitch all the way around until we reach the back seam. So yarn over, insert your hook into that first stitch and make a half double crochet, like so, and we're going to continue this all the way around. Okay, now coming up to the back seam here. So this is my last stitch I'm going to go into, just like so. Then chain 2, turn my work, and make 1 half double crochet in each stitch all the way around until you have 2 stitches left when we come up to this stitch marked area. Okay, so 1 half double crochet in every stitch, and I'll show you how to start making the decreases. Okay, so I have 2 stitches left of this row. To make a decrease, I'm going to yarn over, insert my hook into the next stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, and then I'm going to insert my hook into the next stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop. With 4 loops on your hook, you're going to yarn over and pull through all 4 loops on your hook. So that's our first decrease stitch. Now we're going to chain 2, turn your work, and make 1 half double crochet all the way around until you reach the end. So yarn over, insert your hook into that first stitch. Now, when we start doing these decreases, it can become a little hard to tell where that last stitch is. So I really do recommend marking that very first stitch of the row. So continue making your half double crochets like normal all the way around. Made it to the end of my row, 1 last stitch to make. Once you've inserted your last stitch, chain 1, turn your work, and make 1 half double crochet in each stitch all the way around until you reach your stitch marker. And when you reach your stitch marker, you'll make another decrease. So I'll meet you there when I'm at the stitch marker. Okay, so I'm at my midpoint again where I have to decrease. So I'm just going to remove this stitch marker here, and I have 2 stitches left of this row. So I'm going to yarn over, insert my hook into the next stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop. With 3 loops on your hook, you're going to insert your hook into the next stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop. You have 4 loops on your hook, yarn over and pull through all the loops on your hook. Now we're going to chain 2, turn our work, and make 1 half double crochet in each stitch all the way around until we reach the end. So I hope you get the pattern here. We are basically only going to make a decrease stitch when we come up to the midpoint here. So it's basically decreasing every other row. And then at the back here, this should remain straight, but mine is going a little bit slanted, which is fine, that's okay, because we will sew this up later. Okay, so after you do a few rows of these decreases, you want to measure it against your body. I still have my midpoint marked, so this is where the center of my V point will be, so I will align it there, and of course keep it on the under bust, like so. And then this is what you should have. So now, at this point, I want to decrease on this side as well, so that we can have a triangle shape that will form the thin straps. You can decide whether to have this part go all the way up to your armpit and then start decreasing to make that triangle shape, or like me, I want it to start earlier, so this is maybe 3-4 inches before my armpit. So I'm going to start making decreases here as well to get that triangle shape for the cups. So once you've decided that you want to start decreasing on the side of the top to create the triangle shape for the cups, we need to mark the midpoint of this part here first. So just like we did finding the midpoint of the V neckline, we are going to take the one corner here and another corner, line it up together and fold them in half like this, and then I'm just going to mark a stitch here to estimate the midpoint. Now I'm going to count how many stitches I have in between this stitch marker I just placed and this edge, and however many stitches I have here, I need to make sure I have the same number on this side as well, from this stitch marker to the other edge. Okay, so I have marked my midpoint here. This is basically where our underarm should be. So I have 28 stitches in between this stitch marker and this edge, and I have 27 stitches in between this edge and the stitch marker. Now, it's okay if you have maybe one more stitch in one side like I do, because I have 28 here and 27 here. That's okay. It won't make much of a difference. So you can see that I have left off my stitch at the back seam here. So since I want to start decreasing at this point, I am just going to unravel a few stitches until I get to this red stitch marker here. Now, if you finished off at a decrease point, all you have to do is make your decrease, chain 2, and make half double crochets until you reach the red stitch marker or the midpoint stitch marker. As for me, I need to unravel some stitches so that I can get to this midpoint stitch marker. Okay, so I've made it to the stitch marker, and now I can start making decreases on this side as well. I'll show you again how to make the decreases. So I'm just going to chain 2 first, turn my work, and we'll start making a decrease. So I'm just going to remove this stitch marker because it's in my way. And to make the decrease, yarn over, insert your hook into the next stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop. With 3 loops on your hook, insert your hook into the next stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, and with 4 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull through all the loops on your hook. So that's a decrease. And so now from this point on, we are going to make a decrease on this side and on this side, but we will keep the decreases on every other row. I forgot to give you guys some measurements from the under bust line up until where I decided to start decreasing under the armpit. I have about 2.75 inches, and then I started to make the decrease. And then I had a total of 11 rows before I started making the underarm decrease. Okay, so we're gonna continue. I'm going to make 1 half double crochet in each stitch all the way across until I reach this V point. Okay, I've made it to the end here. And again, we're gonna make a decrease stitch. So yarn over, insert your hook into the next stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop. With 3 loops on your hook, insert your hook into the next stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop. Now you should have 4 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull through all 4 loops on your hook. Okay, so you can also see the V neckline taking shape. So next, chain 2, turn your work, and we're going to make 1 half double crochet in each stitch all the way across until we reach the end. Okay, I'll show you what to do when you reach the end. So meet you back once I finish my row. Okay, I am reaching the end here, so remember that I said we will make decreases on both sides, this edge and the V neckline edge, but we will do it every other row. So this previous row here, we did a decrease, so this row that we're making, we won't make a decrease on this side. So I'm just going to make my half double crochets like normal. Okay, that was my last stitch, and then chain 2, and then we start a new row. So now, because the previous row that we just finished, we didn't do a decrease here, so now on this next row, we will start with a decrease. Okay, so make your decrease stitch. Just like so, and then continue making normal half double crochets all the way down, and then we will make a decrease on this side. Since the decrease stitches can be a little hard to differentiate between the normal half double crochet stitches, and if you do struggle with that, I do recommend marking with stitch markers each row that you did a decrease, so that you don't have to keep looking whether or not you did a decrease in the previous row. So that will help you know when to make a decrease. We're going to continue alternating between those rows, alternating the decrease rows on both sides here to create a triangle shape. You're going to stop making those rows until it reaches at about your underarm level here. You can see this row kind of reaches my underarm area. Once you reach your underarm area, you're going to stop. And now, from now on, we are going to make decreases on every single row on both sides, because before we were making decreases on both sides, but every other row. But from now on, once it reaches your underarm area, you're going to make decreases on both sides every single row. And this will allow the shape to become more triangular so we can have a thinner strap. As you're making those rows, you want to try it on, and once it reaches their armpit, you can stop making the rows, and we can continue making decreases on both sides every row. Okay, so now we'll be making decreases on every row instead of every other row, and I'll show you how we do that. So here you can see I've reached the end of my row. This is the V neckline row. So I'm going to chain 2, turn my work, and I'm going to start with a decrease. So yarn over, insert your hook into the next stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop. With 3 loops on your hook, insert your hook into the next stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop. With 4 loops on your hook, yarn over and pull through all 4 loops on your hook. So that's a decrease for this row. on this side. So this side we've done our decrease. Now we're going to make 1 half double crochet in every stitch all the way across until you reach your last 2 stitches where we will place another decrease. So I'm just gonna make my normal half double crochets first. I've reached the end with 2 remaining stitches, so I'm going to do another decrease. Just like so. So you can see that we made a decrease on this side and on this side. I'm just going to mark this row because we will need to make the same exact shape on the other side here as well. Okay, so to continue, chain 2, turn your work, and start with a decrease. Like so, and then make 1 half double crochet all the way down until you have 2 stitches left. So I have 2 stitches left. I'm going to make a decrease, just like so. So we're going to repeat this, keep making your decreases on both sides, and then you'll start to see your work forming a more triangular shape. Okay, so we are just going to keep making these rows until you're happy with how thick it is. And this thickness, or the width, will be how thick your straps are going to be. I want my straps to be a little thinner than this, so I'm just going to keep going. So making my decrease here. And you'll see I'll only have 1 stitch left to go in. Just go into that last stitch normally. And then now I have only 2 stitches left. So I think this thickness is pretty good for a strap. So now onto the strap portion, you're just going to make normal half double crochets, no decreases. So you can see there I only did 2 stitches, so that's going to be the start of my strap. Chain 2, turn your work. And I'm just going to continue making 2 half double crochets, then chain 2, turn my work, 2 half double crochets. That's what the strap is going to start to look like. And this is what your top should look like so far. So this is the V-neck midpoint, and then we have done our first cup basically. And then we are starting these straps now. So from this row here, this is the 12th row, is where I started decreasing on both sides, every other row. So marking from row 12 all the way until this row where I started decreasing on both sides every single row. So this row here is row 21. So from row 12 to 21, it measures about 2.5 inches. Where I started my strap here, this row right here, this is row 30. So row 21 to row 30, it measures about 2.75 inches. Now I'm just giving you these measurements and row counts for reference, but everyone's body is different and what works for me may not work for you, so it's so important to just keep trying this on. So you are just going to continue making your strap until it reaches at the point where it reaches the back here. Now this can be a little hard to measure because your underbust part is going to be very loose, so just align it to your underbust. Make sure the midpoint is right at the center of your chest. Just try your best to sort of align it. Okay, so just kind of see whether or not this is too long. So mine is definitely too long. I will probably take out a few stitches. When you're measuring this strap portion, we don't want to stretch it because we will be adding elastic to the straps as well. So just have it fit comfortably. I'm not pulling on the strap at all when I'm measuring it on my body here. Now at this point, it's also a good time to see where you want the strap to go. So for me, I want it to be about this area here. So I'm just going to try to mark one of these stitches in this area so I know where to join my strap. So I've marked that. I'm going to show you how to join your strap. Okay, so once you're happy with the length of your strap, we are now going to join it to the back. Okay, this is my front here, so I'm just gonna I'm going to flip this over. And there we go. So I've marked with this pink stitch marker here where I want the strap to go to join. So you're going to make sure that the strap is not twisted. And position it in place like so. Okay, again, making sure the strap is not twisted. So I'm just going to start by chaining one here at the strap, like so. And then I'm just going to insert my hook into that stitch that's marked at the back. Take that stitch marker out. Okay, and then I'm going to do a slip stitch. So yarn over and pull through all the loops on your hook, just like so. Okay. Now this will also depend on how many stitches you have on your strap. I personally only have 2 stitches here, but regardless of how many stitches you have, you will just continue the steps. So since I only have 2, I will only slip stitch twice. But of course, if you have 5 stitches or 3 stitches, you will just go along slip stitching it to the back part here. Just like how I'm doing. The only difference is the number of stitches. Okay, so we've slip stitched that first stitch, now onto the second stitch, and then join to the next stitch on the back part as well. Yarn over and do a slip stitch. Okay, just like that. So now your strap is attached. Now I'm just going to yarn over, chain 1. And before we cut off our yarn, I'm just going to place a stitch marker here so the work doesn't unravel while we're trying it on. You're going to try this on. Make sure you like how the straps are fitting. If the straps are too tight, then you need to add more rows in the strap. And if the straps are too loose, then you need to take away some of these strap rows. So I have put the top on and I'm just going to show you the adjustments I will make based on how it's fitting me right now. So maybe this will help you. I've attached the strap, put it on. You want to make sure that this midpoint here is where you want your V-neck to start. So I want mine to start at about this area. Line it up to your underbust like this. So already I can tell, because this part is loose, that my strap needs to be shorter. Same thing for the back. If I just position it correctly, you can already see my strap is too long. So I need to shorten my strap so that the top fits nicely. I'm going to take off a few stitches, maybe this many stitches, and then I'm going to join it to the back again, try it on again, and see whether or not I like how it fits. So I have made my strap shorter, and I just want to show you how it's fitting on my body right now that I've made the adjustments. You can see that there's no gapping here, and it fits quite nicely, like so. So now I'm happy with how long my strap is, and once you're happy with that, you're going to do the exact same thing that you did on this side for this side. Okay, just to give you guys some measurements on my strap, I've just folded it in half here so the bases are facing each other. And the length of my strap measures about 6 inches. And counting from the row where there are no more decreases, so you can see here this is a decrease, but on this row I've started just doing my strap, so there are no decreases here. I'm going to count from this row. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 37 rows. Once you've tried it on and you're happy with how your strap is fitting, we are just going to take out that stitch marker and place a chain 1, and then we can cut off our yarn. Pull to tighten, and you are done with one side of the top part. So to replicate this entire thing on the opposite side, the first thing you will do is join your yarn to the back here. I'll show you how to do that. I'm just going to turn my work here. This is the midpoint, and then this is the back. So I'm going to join my yarn into this stitch right here. So insert my hook into that stitch, grab your yarn, hook it on, pull it through, then you're going to make a knot to secure the yarn. Then insert your hook back into that same stitch where you joined the yarn, and we're going to yarn over, pull up a loop, chain 2. Okay, so now we can start crocheting like normal. So I'm going to place 1 half double crochet in each stitch all the way across until I reach this midpoint here. Now, as you work your rows, there will be a gap here, but don't worry because we will sew this gap up at the end. Okay, so now I have reached that V-neck midpoint, and just like I did on this side, my last stitch was into that stitch marked by the stitch marker, so I'm just going to do the exact same thing that I did on the other side. So placing my last stitch into that marked stitch, okay, and then we're going to chain 2, and I'm just going to look at this side for reference. Okay, so for this part, it completely depends on what you did for this side. You're just going to do the same exact thing that you did here onto this side. Now I'm just going to do what I did here onto this side, and then I'll meet you back once we finish our top. Okay, now I have a little bit of a dilemma, and I'm going to show you how I solve it just because some of you may encounter the same thing. So basically, I am currently working up my rows to mirror this side. And if you remember here, let me just shift this slightly. So this was our first cup, right? And we were doing decreases every other row on the midpoint V-neck side. And then I also decided to start doing decreases every other row on the underarm side as well. And that's where I decided to kind of leave this area empty and then only start working on this area to form the triangle. But right now my rows are still connected, and so I'll need to disconnect my row here somewhere around this area to start making that triangle shape. I hope I'm explaining this well enough, but now I'll just show you how to do that. So I am currently on row 10. So on this row, I need to start making that triangle shape, right? But I have ended on the midpoint V-neck side. So what I'm gonna do after my row 10, because on this row, I need to make this side as well, right? But since I'm here and I'm not here, I will need to cut my yarn here and join my yarn here. So I'm going to chain 1 and cut off my yarn, pull to tighten, and now I am going to count how many stitches are in between the back seam here and this purple stitch marker. This purple stitch marker is where we started making the decreases. In between this edge and this stitch marker, I have 28 stitches. So I'm going to flip this over and now count 28 stitches from this edge onwards and mark the 29th stitch. Okay, so once it is marked, we are now going to join the yarn at the marked stitch. So insert your hook into that stitch, grab your yarn, hook it on, pull it through, tie a knot to secure. Insert your hook back into that same stitch. Now we're going to yarn over, pull up a loop, chain 2, and you just have to mirror what you did on this side. So my first row, I didn't make any decreases, so I just made 1 row of half double crochet, and then of course when I came up to this V midpoint, I made my decrease. Okay, so you're just going to now continue mirroring this side and following the steps you did. If when you are about to join the strap to the back side, you may have the problem that your last stitch ends on the opposite side that it's supposed to. My yarn ends on the left side here, but I need to join my yarn from the right side, if that makes sense. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to chain 1, then take out my hook, and then I'm going to, okay, at this point make sure your strap is not tangled. I'm going to insert my hook into the leftmost stitch. So since I have 2 stitches only on my strap, my 2 stitches that I need to join it into is the one that's marked and the one on the left. Okay, so I'm going to go into the one on the left, and then I'm going to insert my hook into that loop, tighten it, and I'm going to pull that loop through that stitch. And now I'm just going to kind of turn my work a little bit, and we're going to insert our hook into the stitch with the stitch marker, and then insert your hook into the right stitch on the strap there, like so. Then we're going to slip stitch, so yarn over and pull through all the loops on your hook. Okay, and there you go, you have joined your strap. Once you're done joining your second strap, make sure you don't chain one and cut off your yarn, because we will need it still attached to create a little border around the neckline, and this will just help create a more cleaner edge. Okay, so let's get started on that border. I'm going to start off by chaining 1, and now I'm going to place 1 half double crochet in each row. So let me just demonstrate first where each row is. So the first row of this strap here is this row right here, and then this is the second row, this is the third row, fourth row, fifth row, and so on. So we will place stitches along the edge of these rows, and we'll place 1 half double crochet per row. So to start, yarn over, and I'm just going to kind of turn my work so I can work more comfortably. You can see the first row of half double crochets is right here. So I'm just going to insert my hook into that row and create a half double crochet. I like marking the first stitch just to make it more convenient for me. Okay, so we carry on. Our next row is right here. So we will place a half double crochet into the second row. And then the next row is right here, so 1 half double crochet into that row. So we'll continue placing our half double crochets in each row. If your work is starting to kind of bunch up, that means your stitches are too tight, so try loosening up your stitches. Okay, and now I'm coming up to the part where we have our triangle cups. We're just going to do the same exact thing we've been doing to our straps. So what I mean by that is placing 1 half double crochet into each row. Okay, so my next row is here, so I'm going to place a half double crochet into that row, like so, and then my next row is here. Place 1 half double crochet. Next row is here. Place 1 half double crochet. And then next row is here. Again, place 1 half double crochet. So we're going to do that. We're going to keep going all the way until the end, and I will meet you when we are at this midpoint v-neck part. Okay, I am up to the v-neck midpoint, and I just did 1 half double crochet into this row right here, and my next stitch is going to be into this stitch that's marked with the stitch marker. I'm going to take it out, and I'm going to place 1 half double crochet in there, like so. And then I'm going to move on to crochet up the side of this other cup. So my next row will be right here. So place a half double crochet into that row. And then my next row is here. So place another half double crochet. So you're going to do the same thing all the way up this other cup. Okay, so I've made it to the part where the strap joins back to the back part, and I'm just going to show you how we're going to place our half double crochets along this corner. So I have 1 more row of the strap to go through. I'm just going to half double crochet right into that row. And now I'm going to slip stitch into this stitch here where the strap is attached to. So insert your hook into that stitch, yarn over, pull through all the loops on your hook. So I have slip stitched into there, and now I'm going to place a half double crochet in each stitch all the way across. Okay, so we have this split at the back here. Once you finish making your last stitch, I'm going to chain one and cut off my yarn. And when you cut off your yarn, make sure to leave a long enough tail so that we can sew this back part up together. Okay, pull your yarn through and pull to tighten. Then I'm going to take a needle and thread the yarn through. So that's the end that we just cut, like so. And now I am going to sew these two parts together. This side has one row more. So what I'm going to do to make it even is I'm just going to put my needle through this stitch at the bottom. And then through the top of this row towards the other side, like so. So now our yarn starts at the same level here. So now I'm just going to insert my needle into this row here, and we're just basically going to sew this gap closed. Okay, and once you're done, I'm just going to put it towards the back there. So we've seamed up those two sides together, and then I'm just going to make a knot here to secure. Okay, and then you can weave in your ends here. So while I have my needle attached, I'm just going to go ahead and weave in this end. Now we're going to have to join our yarn back. So where I left off is right here. I'm going to insert my hook into that last stitch we made, grab my yarn, hook it on, pull it through, tie a knot to secure. Then I'm going to insert my hook back into that same stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, and then we can start crocheting again. So I'm going to place a half double crochet stitch along this edge right here. So I am reaching this corner here. I have one stitch to go through, and then I'm going to insert my hook into the stitch where the straps are attached. And then I'm going to yarn over, pull up a loop, and then I'm going to insert my hook into the first stitch we made, so where the stitch marker is in, and then I'm going to yarn over, pull through all the loops on my hook. Now we can chain one and cut off our yarn. Just gonna remove this stitch marker. Remember to pull and tighten. So we've made the border, but not yet finished because we still have this other side to do. So again, we need to join our yarn. I'm going to pick joining my yarn somewhere here on the side of the top so that you can't really see where we join our yarn. I'm going to insert my hook into one of these stitches, grab my yarn, hook it on, pull it through, tie a knot to secure. grab my yarn and insert it through that same stitch. Now yarn over, pull up a loop, and then we're going to chain 2. And now we can continue making a half double crochet in each stitch all the way around. So first stitch is here, and we continue making our half double crochets. Again, I'll meet you at this corner. I'm at the corner, I've made my last stitch there, and now I'm going to insert my hook into the stitch where the straps are connected, and I'm going to make a slip stitch. So yarn over and pull through, like so. And then I'm going to place 1 half double crochet in each of the strap rows, just like we did before. So first row is here. And my second row is here. Okay, so we keep going all the way until we reach this corner. Okay, so I've made it to this corner here. I have that little corner stitch, which I'm going to slip stitch into, and then place my half double crochets. Then here we are up to that first stitch we placed in the round. So I'm just going to join this round, insert my hook into that first stitch, and make a slip stitch. Then we can chain 1 and cut off our yarn. Pull to tighten, and one side is done. Now we have this side to get done. So same thing, I'm going to join my yarn into one of these stitches here. Then I'm going to make 1 half double crochet per row all the way around, and then join and then cut off my yarn, just like we did for this side. Okay, so now we are done with our top part, and we're going to move on to adding our colorful rows at the bottom. Our first round of the bottom part is going to be a round of half double crochets, and this round has to have a multiple of 4. So let's see if the beginning chain I did at the start is divisible by 4. How to do that? I'm just going to show you on my calculator here. My beginning chain was 115 chains. Going to see if that's divisible by 4 by dividing it by 4. And we get a decimal number. So this means 115 is not divisible by 4, okay, because there's a decimal. It's only divisible by 4 if the result is a whole number. So what do we do to make sure that this first round of the bottom part is a multiple of 4? What we can do is add an increase. What an increase does is it adds stitches to the round. So if I made 1 increase in my bottom part round, then my stitch number will change to 116 instead of 115 because I made 1 increase stitch, so that adds 1 stitch into my round. If I made an increase in that first round, which will give me 116 stitches, is that number now divisible by 4? So let's see. 116 divided by 4, and there you go, it's a whole number, so that means 116 is divisible by 4. Okay, so what that means for me is when I do my round of half double crochet, I'm going to make 1 increase stitch, and I will show you how to do that. Okay, just so that this calculation is clear to you all, I don't want you to be confused, I'm going to give you an example. So for example, if your beginning chain was 106 chains, and you want to see if this is divisible by 4, so divide by 4, it gives us a decimal number. So this is not divisible by 4. So let's see, what if I add an increase in my first round of the bottom part? So that brings my stitch count to 107 instead of 106. So let's see if 107 is divisible by 4. Again, it's a decimal number. Now let's try adding another increase. So from 107, it will be 108. So at this point, I've added 2 increased stitches because from originally we had 106, now we're having 108 stitches. And there you go, 108 is divisible by 4 because this is a whole number. So what that means for you is when you are making the first round of the bottom part, you will make 2 increases. I really hope that makes sense. Again, like I said in the intro, if you do have any questions or are confused at any part of this tutorial, I'm always here to help, and you can always DM me on Instagram with pictures to help you explain what your struggles are. Let's move on to the bottom part. And I'm going to choose to join my yarn somewhere on the sides of my top. That way it's not very noticeable when you wear it. So I'm just going to choose this stitch right here, one of these stitches along this chain. I'm going to insert my hook into the chain. Okay. Then I'm going to take my colorful yarn, hook it on, and pull it through. Make a knot to secure. And now we can start crocheting. So insert your hook back into that same stitch you joined your yarn into. Then you're going to yarn over and pull up a loop. Chain 2. And then we're going to place 1 half double crochet in that same stitch. This is our first half double crochet of the row. Again, I like marking that very first stitch. And actually, before we continue, I'm just going to mark this loose loop here to just kind of explain where we will be making our increases. So for me, my beginning chain was 115, but since that's not a multiple of 4, I had to go up to 116. So I need to make 1 increase in this first round. Now you can make that increase anywhere. If you have 2 increases, I recommend you put 1 on each side. But if you just have 1 like me, it really doesn't matter where you put this increase stitch. I like to just put it on the side here, so I'm just going to pick a random stitch on the side of my top. What this does is just reminds me that I need to put an increase stitch into this stitch here. Okay, so to continue, we're going to place 1 half double crochet in each stitch until we get to that stitch marker we just placed, and I'll show you how to make an increase. Okay, I've made it up to that stitch marker, and I'm just going to remove this stitch marker here because it gets in the way. And basically, increase stitch means placing 2 half double crochets in the same stitch. So I'm going to yarn over, place 1 half double crochet, and then I'm going to yarn over, place another half double crochet in that same stitch. Okay, and that is our increase stitch done, and we can just continue placing 1 half double crochet in each stitch across. So you can see that is our increase, where we have 2 stitches coming out of 1 stitch. Okay, and we're just going to continue making 1 half double crochet all the way around until we get to the beginning. I have finished making my half double crochets. I'm going to slip stitch into that very first half double crochet we made. Just like so. And then now we can start our rounds of the iris stitch. So to do this stitch, we are going to start by chaining 4. And we are going to now yarn over and put a double crochet in that same stitch. Okay, just like that. We're going to place 1 more double crochet in that same stitch. Now we're going to skip 3 stitches, and into the 4th stitch we'll place a double crochet. So yarn over and insert your hook into the first stitch, making 1 double crochet. Then we're going to place 1 more double crochet in the same stitch, and then chain 1, and now place 2 more double crochets in the same stitch. That's 1, and now my second double crochet in the same stitch. So this is what you should have. Okay? So again, skip the next 3 stitches, and into the 4th stitch, place 2 double crochets. Followed by a chain 1, and then 2 more double crochets in the same stitch. Okay, I'll show you one last time. Yarn over, skip the next 3 stitches, and into the 4th stitch, place 2 double crochets, then chain 1, and place another 2 double crochets in the same stitch. Okay, so this is our iris stitch. This is what it's going to look like. They're like little shell stitches. Okay, so I have reached the end where I have 3 stitches left, and now we are going to yarn over and put a double crochet in that same stitch we did all of our first stitches in. So you can see here is where I put all of my stitches. I'm going to place 1 double crochet, just like so, and then remember we started with a chain 4. We are going to slip stitch into that 3rd chain right here to complete our round. Okay, so that's what you should have so far. And now to start the new round, I am going to slip stitch right in the center here. This is the chain 1 space. So I'm going to insert my hook into that chain 1 space and do a slip stitch, just like so. And now we begin at the 3rd round of our bottom part. Start by chaining 4. And then we are going to yarn over, place 1 double crochet in that same stitch. And then place 1 more double crochet in that same stitch, just like so. Now we're going to place our next cluster of stitches into this chain space here. You can see this is the chain space, this is a chain space, and this is a chain space. We will not be putting our stitches in between these clusters. That's not where you want to put your stitches. I'm going to put my stitches right in the chain space in between the double crochets. Okay, so place 2 double crochets, chain 1, and another 2 double crochets all in that same chain space. Okay, so that's what you should have so far for round 3 of the bottom part. And we're just going to continue repeating this row over and over again until you're happy with the length of your top. So let me just go through it with you one more time. Remember, we are only placing our cluster of stitches in between the double crochets, so every chain space. Okay, so yarn over, insert your hook into the next chain space and place 2 double crochets, followed by chain 1, and then another 2 double crochets in the same chain space. Okay, so keep doing this all the way around, and I'll show you again how to finish off the round. Okay, I've come up to the end of my round. I'll show you one more time how to end it. So I've made my last cluster of stitches in this chain space, and you can see I have no more stitches left to go into, so now I'm going to yarn over and put a double crochet in the same stitch we made our first cluster of stitches. So right here, I'm going to insert my hook and place a double crochet, like so. And now we're going to slip stitch into this 3rd chain here. So this is the 1st chain, 2nd chain, and 3rd chain. Insert your hook into the 3rd chain, yarn over, and pull through all the loops on your hook to make a slip stitch. Okay, and that is how you're going to close up the round. And then you will slip stitch into the middle here, into this chain space, to start your next round. And then you'll start by chaining 4, and then you'll make your cluster of stitches into each chain space. Continue making these rounds until you're happy with the length. I have finished making my rows of the iris stitch, And I'm just going to show you how to close it off. So I just completed my last cluster of stitches. I'm going to yarn over and make a double crochet in that very first stitch that we made our first cluster of stitches in. And then I'm going to slip stitch into that third chain. Then I'm going to slip stitch into the center of this cluster here where the chain space is. Okay, and now we're going to make a little shell stitch border for our last row. You're going to chain 3. So this chain will count as a double crochet stitch, and then you're going to place 4 double crochets in this same chain space here. This is 1, 2, 3, and 4. So now I have 4 double crochets plus the chain 3. So in total, since this chain 3 counts as our double crochet, we have 5 double crochet stitches in here. Now we're going to place 6 double crochets all in this chain space here, this next chain space. So yarn over, insert your hook into that next chain space, and place 6 double crochets all in the same chain space. Once you've made your 6 double crochets, we're going to move on to this next chain space right here and place another 6 double crochets all in that same stitch. Okay, just like that. So we're going to continue repeating this all the way around until we reach the end, and I'll show you how to finish off. Okay, so I've made my last cluster of 6 double crochets there, and to finish off we are going to yarn over and place a double crochet stitch into this first cluster that we made. And then if you remember, we started with a chain 3, so I'm going to slip stitch into that third chain. Okay, just like that, and now I'm going to chain 1, and now you can cut off your yarn. Pull to tighten, and you are finished with the bottom part. For the bottom part, including my first row of half double crochet, I have 20 rows in total, and this measures about 8.75 inches. Okay, so now we are going to add our elastic. So grab your 2mm hook or your smaller sized hook, and we are going to turn our work inside out, so make sure you're working on the wrong side. First, I'm going to start by placing my elastic into the very bottom row of the top part, so this white row, the very first white row we have here. To join your elastic thread, we are going to go through only the front loops. What I mean by that is, you can see here, this is one stitch. I'm only going to pick up these 2 loops here. So just insert my hook through the side of the stitch. That's one loop, and now I'm trying to get this second loop. So I'm only going to pick up these 2 loops. Okay, so we're only going to be working into these 2 loops of every stitch all the way around. So once we have that, I'm going to take my elastic thread, hook it on, and pull it through. We're going to tie a knot to secure. Okay, insert your hook back into those loops. Okay, and now you're going to yarn over and pull through. We're going to chain 1, and then I'm going to go into the next stitch, which is right here. Again, only picking up those 2 loops. It can be a little hard to get into, that's why I've switched over to a smaller sized hook. If it's still really hard to get into, I recommend you size down on your hook. Okay, once you've inserted your hook into those loops, we're going to yarn over, pull through, and pull through all the loops on your hook. So we're making slip stitches here. Now, the tighter your tension is, the tighter these elastic stitches will be. So let's say if your top fits you very loosely, then I do recommend you have a tight tension when adding your elastic stitches. But if your top fits you fine and you just want it to kind of cinch in at the underbust a little bit, then you don't need to keep your tension so tight. So again, going into the next stitch here on the side. Like so, yarn over, pull through all the loops to make a slip stitch. Okay, and again, next stitch, making our slip stitch. Okay, so that's what you want to do all the way around. You're going to keep going into the sides of the stitches, picking up only those 2 loops, and you'll start to see the top kind of get smaller at this area. So I will meet you back again when I finish this round of slip stitches. Okay, so I've reached a part where I think this is the seam where we sewed up the back, and my next stitch is not very clear. There are no, like those 2 loops that we're supposed to go into are not there. So I'm just going to show you how I combat this issue here. So my next stitch is supposed to be here, but as you can see, there are those 2 loops aren't there for me to go into. So I'm just going to try and go into any loop. I just picked up that loop. It can be any loop, just make sure that it's not the whole stitch like this. Like if you do this, then you'll be able to see the elastic thread through the front. Try to pick up a few stitches or 1 stitch and slip stitch like normal. And you can see here I'm back to those normal stitches where I have these 2 loops to go through. And that was my last slip stitch because I have no more stitches to go into here. So what I'm going to do is just kind of turn my work a little bit upwards so I can see my stitches, and I'm just going to insert my hook into that very first slip stitch, and then we're going to slip stitch to join the round. Then you're going to chain 2. Since this is elastic, it's better to chain 2. And then you can cut off your yarn. Pull to tighten. And then I like to make a triple knot with these 2 ends to make sure that everything is nice and secure. Okay, and then we will hide these ends, but this is basically what it should look like. There should be a little bit of scrunching here. You can see that. And this is what it looks like on the right side. So obviously when we wear it, it'll kind of stretch out like this. And now we are going to do the same thing, but around the armhole. So I'll be joining my elastic here, and then we'll go all the way around our sleeve. So I'll show you how to do that. For this, we are going to go into that last row of half double crochets we made. So I'm going to insert my hook into one of these stitches here. Just gonna pick this one. And again, we're only gonna go through those 2 loops, just like we did for the underbust part. Take your elastic and join with a knot. Then take your hook and go back into those same stitches, and then you're going to yarn over, pull up a loop, chain 1, and then we are going to go into the stitches all the way along this armhole, just like we did for the underbust. So only picking up those 2 loops, going in from the side of the stitch and slip stitching. I have made it to my last slip stitch. Now we're going to slip stitch into that first elastic stitch that we did, like so. Then chain 2, and you can cut off your yarn. So this is what my sleeve is looking like. It's a little bit ruffled, but that's normal. Pull to tighten, and then make a triple knot with these 2 ends. And then we can hide these ends. Okay, so you're gonna do the exact same thing we did here for this armhole to the other side. So join your yarn here and then go all the way around, making slip stitches with the elastic thread. Then once you do that, we will also add elastic to this other part here. So it'll go all the way along this back part, and then the opposite side of the strap, and then it'll also align our v-neck. So I'm going to insert my yarn into one of these back stitches, again only picking up those 2 loops. Then I'm going to join my yarn, or sorry, my elastic thread. Make a knot to secure. Then insert my hook back into those same stitches. Yarn over, pull up a loop, chain 1, and we can start making our slip stitches all the way around. Again, just like we've been doing for the armhole and the underbust, same process, only picking up those 2 loops at the front. And slip stitching. I have made it to the end, and we're just going to slip stitch into that first slip stitch, just like we've been doing, like so. Chain 2 and cut off your yarn. Pull to tighten and make a triple knot with these 2 ends. And your top is done. We've added all of the elastic, so all you have left to do is to weave in all of your ends. You've made it to the end of the tutorial. I hope you enjoyed making your new top. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you next time. Bye!